You've probably seen it at some point in your life, maybe in your refrigerator at home, or maybe on a platter at a family get together. You've seen it probably in chip flavorings, you've seen it in TV commercials, and you've probably even seen it in a nice, hot, steamy cheeseburger. Cheese is a very important food all across the world, and especially to me. Cheese is probably one of my most favorite foods, but every time that I have it, I always have to ask myself, where did cheese come from? As in, how did it spread across the world? So today, I'm going to talk about the history of cheese, how it spread across the world, why the state of Wisconsin is so known for it, and why the United States government has a cave filled with it. So let's begin and talk about how cheese was accidentally made. To understand how cheese was accidentally made, we need to go back 7,000 years to the small town of Kujawia, Poland, 5000 BC. At this time, people were in the transition from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. It's believed that cheese was accidentally made when someone tried to store milk in a cow's stomach. The milk curdled and formed the treat that we call cheese. Eventually, people found out that if you salt and press the curds, it can help to preserve the cheese and make it last longer. From there, cheese went to ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian cheese has been found in tombs, and the process of making cheese has been found on ancient murals that date back to 2000 BC. From there, cheese went to the Roman Empire. You'd think that cheese would mostly stay the same because it didn't travel that far, but you'd actually be wrong. There are a couple differences between Egyptian and Roman cheeses. Typically, the climates in Europe are a bit colder than they are in the Middle East. This meant that less salt needed to be added to the preservation process, which allowed microbes and molds to form, giving aged cheeses their distinctive and delicious flavor. From there, cheese went to the United Kingdom, and from there it spread like wildfire. The United Kingdom exported to places like deeper into Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, but more importantly, North America, specifically to the United States of America. In 1620, the Mayflower made it to the New World. It brought with it things like beer, beef, pork, wheat, oat, but more importantly, cheese. From there, cheese just continued to grow, and more cheeses were being made, to the point where nowadays there are roughly 2,000 different types of cheeses across the world. In 2012, cheese was the #1 most shoplifted item from supermarkets worldwide. Surprisingly, the United States is not the leading consumer of cheese, as fat as we are. The United States was beat by Germany, France, and Finland, where the average person was consuming about 55 pounds of cheese a year. For comparison, Americans eat roughly 41 pounds of cheese a year. So we understand how cheese was accidentally made, but now I want to talk about the state of Wisconsin, because let's face it, I couldn't make an entire informative about the history of cheese without talking about this great state. According to the 1850 census records, 400,000 pounds of cheese were made in the year 1949. It's believed that Wisconsin's cheese making was started when immigrants from Germany, Switzerland, and Finland came to Wisconsin and set up small towns all over the countryside. Eventually, these immigrants partnered up with American pioneers and started to make cheese in these small towns. The first farmstead cheese factory was opened in Koshkonong, Wisconsin, and a farmstead cheese factory made by the Swiss was opened in New Glarus, Wisconsin, from cows imported from Iowa. From there, cheese just continued to spread across the state of Wisconsin to the point where in the 19th century, there was roughly one cheese factory every 2.8 square miles. And in Greene County sits on about 600 square miles. So that's a lot of cheese factories in just one county. Since then, cheese has been a huge part of Wisconsin's agriculture. And by the way, Wisconsin's state cheese is Colby. So now we understand why Wisconsin is so well known for cheese and how cheese spread across the world. But now I want to talk about another state that is also known for cheese. It's not necessarily the type of cheese that's made, but more who owns it. I want you to picture this. It's a beautiful Missouri field. There's butterflies fluttering, birds chirping, a rooster calling his morning cadence, and a cow munching on a field of grass. Little does that cow know that right below his feet is a piece of history. It's not some ancient tomb or buried treasure. No, this is the Springfield Cave System, better known as the Missouri Cheese Caves. Let's take a trip back to the 1970s, the year of the Watergate scandal, the end of U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, the Iranian hostage crisis, and lots of inflation. At this time in history, the United States kind of had a problem with money. Specifically, farmers had a problem with money. So, in 1973, Jimmy Carter released $2 billion into the dairy industry in the short span of 4 years. This meant that the farmers who were previously counting their pennies were now flush with cash. This is because the United States government was willing to buy any milk that these farmers couldn't sell or use to make it into things like butter, dehydrated milk powder, and cheese, specifically government cheese. And this worked for a long time until eventually we had a problem. There was just too much cheese. It got to the point where there were over 500 million pounds of cheese stocked away in warehouses over 35 different states. Basically, cow manure has hit the fan. And this was made even worse when the government had no idea what to do with this cheese. As the government was scrambling to figure out a solution to this problem, the cheesy conundrum became public when John R. Block, the agricultural secretary, brought the problem up to the White House. It is because of this that President Ronald Reagan was sharply criticized. Eventually, Ronald Reagan agreed to release 30 million pounds of cheese from the stockpiles. This cheese was given out to the elderly, the low-income families, and the corporations that served them. People who have had government cheese know it for its distinctive flavor and often moldy exterior. Government cheese symbolizes hard times. It symbolizes very difficult times in American history. Eventually, the government got out of the cheese-making business in the 1990s. And since then, cheese has just been stocked away in these caves, and we just don't really know what to do with them. So, here we are. In the short span of 7 to 10 minutes, we now know why or how cheese spread across the world. We know why Wisconsin is so known for it. And we now understand what these are. So, we saw the Wisconsin countryside. We saw ancient Egyptian tombs. From the humble beginnings of a cow's stomach to the millions of pounds of cheese stocked away in Missouri. To leave you with a piece of advice, the second mouse gets the cheese, and good things come to those who wait. Thank you.